I saw what I saw. I saw the White Walkers. People need to know.
Could you imagine a world where we'd actually be talking about the undead army being in House of the Dragon Season 2? We're living in that world right now, and in this video, I want to go over a couple of theories that I have on how they could actually bring back the undead army into Season 2, but still have it make sense. But real quick, for the people who have no idea what I'm talking about right now, basically there was a picture leaked from the set of House of the Dragon Season 2, and that picture was of a reference board labeled undead, and this reference board was in a crowd makeup booth, meaning that it's for the extras. And I've heard some people say that they could just be using the reference board for the makeup of all the people who are going to be dying during the battles of Season 2. And that could be the case here, but I feel like the makeup for undead and just normal dead are two completely different things. Like the undead are supposed to have more of that decaying, zombified look, so I don't think they would use that reference board for people who are just going to be dying during a battle. So me personally, I do think that we're going to see the undead army in some form in House of the Dragon Season 2, whether it's just a normal wight, a White Walker, or the Night King. But now the next question is, how can they do that while still making it make sense? I'm going to try and answer that question with some theories I have. I got 3 of them, and I think the third one's the most interesting, so make sure you stick around for that. But starting off with number 1, we could be getting a flashback scene to the original Long Night. At the end of House of the Dragon Season 1, we know Jacaerys was heading to Winterfell to talk with Cregan Stark, and it's already confirmed that we're going to be seeing the Wall, and we're going to be seeing the Night's Watch. So imagine a scene where Jacaerys is up in Winterfell talking to one of the elders before he leaves, and this elder tells him a story about the original Long Night, sort of like how old Nan was telling Bran a bedtime story about the White Walkers in Game of Thrones.
In that darkness, the White Walkers came for the first time. They swept through cities and kingdoms, riding their dead horses, hunting with their packs of pale spiders, big as hounds.
So if we got a scene like that, I could definitely see them giving us a flashback to the original Long Night, just to give us some type of visualization of how big the threat really was. Now moving on to my second theory. It's similar to the first one, but it's different in a sense of we're not going back in time, but we're going forward into the future, meaning someone in the show is going to have a vision into the future, just like how Bran and Daenerys did in Game of Thrones. And the way I can see this playing out is, first you gotta remember, the storyline with the prince who was promised and the dagger is still going on. So we're definitely still going to get scenes that have to do with that specific storyline, and not just scenes about the blacks versus the greens. And as far as we know right now, Rhaenyra is the only one alive who still knows about the prophecy. So my bet would be on her to have that vision. And if this scene did actually happen, I would imagine it being during a time where things are really heating up between the blacks and the greens. And Rhaenyra is so distracted by that she's basically forgotten about the prophecy. And maybe we get a scene where Rhaenyra is just so done with everything that she just wants to be alone for a little bit. So she finally gets away from everyone and she's alone in a room. She starts breaking down crying from all the stress and the fighting, as well as the tragedy of losing her son. And while she's breaking down, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders, something catches her eye, and that something is the dagger shining from the light of the fire. And instantly she remembers the prophecy that Viserys told her. So she walks up to the dagger with tears in her eyes, and in that emotional state, she touches the dagger and has a vision into the future where she sees the army of the dead. Now I got one more theory, and personally it's my favorite one, so let me lay the foundation down. We know House of the Dragon Season 1 changed a couple things from the books in ways that the actual book event did happen, just not in the way that we thought it would happen. For example, in the book, Aemon and Vhagar just straight up killed Lucerys, but in the show, they still killed him. But we found out that it was actually an accident, and Aemon didn't actually want to kill him. So what if they could do something like that, but for the Night King and the White Walkers? They say they haven't been seen for thousands of years, and they could keep that part true. But just because they haven't been seen doesn't mean they weren't there. It just means that nobody saw them, so nobody could report it. Or if somebody did see them, maybe they couldn't report it because they never made it back alive. What if the Night King and the White Walkers were still there, just slowly rebuilding their army in the background? while everyone else was too distracted to notice. Because even in the time frame that Game of Thrones took place in, everyone still thought the White Walkers and the Night King were just a bedtime story, or at the very least were just dead and gone. That is, until Jon Snow was able to prove that they were real. So who's to say that the Night King and the White Walkers can't still be lurking around, slowly rebuilding that army? Who's to say that we don't get a scene at the end of House of the Dragon Season 2, where after all of the battles that took place between the Blacks and the Greens, after all the damage is done, all the battles, all the fighting, and after whichever side is standing on top in that specific time frame, we get one last final scene, but it's not in King's Landing, it's up north, beyond the wall, and it's a scene that will play out just like the very first scene of Game of Thrones. So imagine it playing out just like that, but with one exception. In the Game of Thrones scene, the White Walker purposely spares the Night's Watch Ranger because the White Walker wanted him to go back and tell everyone that the army of the dead is real and they're coming. But in this hypothetical House of the Dragon scene, the White Walker wouldn't do that because he doesn't want everyone to know that the army of the dead is actually real, because they are still rebuilding that army and just wouldn't be strong enough to take on House Targaryen and their dragons if they ever found out about them. So that's why they'll make sure there's no survivors, and that's why they haven't been seen for thousands of years. So those are my 3 theories on how they can actually make sense of this. If you got anything to add, please feel free to do so in the comments below. And thank you for watching if you stuck around this long. Have a good rest of your day or night, and I'll catch you later.